I left my phone behind.
No, but I might go on.
No issues with interrupting me. A lot of information to tell you, so I'll kind of go through it as much as I can. I'll condense it a little bit just for the time sake today. But any question that you have, feel free to ask. Do not hesitate. So basically, this is where everything starts. As I said, I'm Matt Patterson. I'm the head distiller and one of the co-owners. So the good thing about us here is we have 2 bay doors. Okay, we do a major production. We're the first craft distillery in Manitoba. So there's Patent 5 and us. We are the major producer as far as production. So we have a benefit here of having 2 bay doors. So we have one door on the side there that you'll see behind you, which is used for all of our deliveries, taking in a bottle and sending out to the liquor store. And then the second bay door here is used to store all of our grain. Okay? So the big thing with us is we're predominantly using 2 grains. We use wheat and we use rye. We use everything that we can get as Manitoba bought. So all of our grain is all Manitoba purchased, all of our botanicals, any dill, any weeds that we're using as far as infusions, that's all going to be Manitoba bought. So we try and keep it as craft, quote unquote, as possible, right? So the big thing here, like I said, is going to be rye and wheat. Now, it's a little crammed in here because we got so much production going on, but we have the totes in here, which this door comes in. You can all gather around, I'm not claustrophobic, don't worry. So the way that it works is we get the wheat in here, okay? And now these totes, you'll see the little gray totes or the white bins there. Those will hold rye wheat and wheat grain. And now the thing about that is we don't have any pre-milled grain here, okay? The reason for that is a lot of distilleries order their grain pre-milled just because of ease of use. They don't have the access to milling on site. And also then the thing that comes in with that though is a lot of lead times on deliveries. And it's also a little bit more expensive to get pre-milled grain. So the big thing for us is because we're doing such major production, we need to mill on site so that we don't have to worry about delivery times, and we can also keep the grain fresher, so that way that you're not having any one mold coming into the factory, and 2, just the absolute freshest grain that you can hold on to. So that's the big thing, and we order on a weekly basis. So we go through about 2,000 pounds of grain a week. So we're ripping pretty good around here. So what I'll do is I'll take you guys in this direction. Okay. So right over here. So this is where the first part starts. So what the first part about this, okay, is I mentioned the grain holding area there. So what we do is, let's say for any base mix, if we're making a vodka, we will essentially use 20 parts of wheat to 1 part of rye. And the recipe, obviously, I'm not going to tell you, but that's the base breakdown. So the way that that works is we use a little bit of rye just because it has a sweet caramel flavor to it, and you'll get a little bit of that creaminess from the rye, but you don't want too much when you're making a clear spirit like a vodka, because you will get a little bit of cloudiness. The rye has a little bit of sediment to it, and just as you cook it out, you'll notice a slight coloring, right? Now, obviously, if I age that, then you'll get a heavy coloring with the rye. But we want our vodka to be as premium and as clear as possible. So that's why we use a large portion of wheat, just a small portion of rye just for that flavoring. So as I mentioned, we don't buy any pre-milled grain. So the big thing, and this is a really important part of the tour for us, because Fort Garry Brewing or Fort Garry Distributors originally started off as Two Rivers Brewing about 20 years ago. Okay, you're probably all familiar with that. So the two brothers there had bought this mill originally from an agricultural supplier when they started Two Rivers. So this mill is quite cool because when they went into Fort Garry and they got their major industrial complex over there on Kenaston, right? They had this in their storage. So they had obviously moved on to major agricultural mills and large scale, right? But with us, we had kind of got a little bit of a relationship going with the two of them, and we ended up purchasing this mill from them 7 years ago. So we repainted it, repurposed it, put some new parts on it. And the cool thing about this mill is it's been in the alcohol industry since day one. That's all it done is milled grain for the sole purpose of making alcohol. So it's kind of a little history piece for us, and knock on wood, cross my fingers, Jason and I have no problems for it for 6 years, except for 2 weeks ago the motor finally blew. So something's got to give eventually, right? Yeah, and thank God for Princess Auto's return policy. So you saw that. So that is the big thing, right? Is you use those return policies when you can. Yep. Very important for us. The big thing is I mentioned there with the wheat, when we take it out and they're ready for milling, I'll weigh it in these bags here. So I'll get it out and I'll put it on that little scale that you see behind you there. And like I said, I'll weigh out my specific recipe if I'm making rye or vodka. And so then I'll weigh the rye and I'll weigh the wheat separately, because the reason for that is if you mill wheat and rye grains together, the rye is a little bit thicker and it'll actually cause the wheels to skip and you'll get unmilled grain coming through. So you don't want to do that, because even over time as it mills, it might be 15-20 minutes for like that 20 kilograms that I talked about. but you will get a lot of grain coming in that 10 minutes. So it doesn't add too much into the end as far as grain that's not spent in the mash tun, but you will lose percentages of ABV if that grain's not able to open up properly. So ultimately the big thing for us, right, is I'm just trying to be as consistent with my numbers as possible. So I want all the milled grain that I can. Now, when I finish that milling, okay, so I'll then have, let's say it's a vodka recipe, it'll be about 400 kilograms of grain, okay? So the big thing with that then is I will take that grain and it'll be held up originally when I'm milling by this forklift, and I always hold it by the door because I have done a lot of milling around here, and you get baker's lung after a certain amount of time. And I got a pretty bad intensity to it, so I have, you know, the 3M mask and everything, but I just keep it near the door because keeping this place clean is a friggin' nightmare. It is very hard, especially when you're milling on site, right? Dust is going everywhere. So I'm constantly cleaning and just trying to keep that dust going out the back door, right? So the thing with that now is we do have a heavy HVAC system, obviously, to process, but you can't keep up with it. So we try our best here. Now, once I've milled that, it's been hung up in the air with the forklift. It'll go down underneath through the mill into the bags here, and then I'll have that 400 kilograms that I was talking about for vodka, for example, of the milled grain, okay? So once we get that milled grain, that's when step one starts, and that's when we make the mash. So I'll take you guys right over here, and we're gonna hit the mash. And now, yeah, that's an interesting one. If you smell that, I'll just give you a quick, because everyone's going to take a whiff. What do you think that is? It smells pretty funky. It's real funky. You're actually the closest one that I've had. Okay, so I've had a lot of schnickers on the industry and especially with brewers, right? So the big thing is what will happen sometimes they'll have issues with over fermentation or bacteria growth, right? So what we'll do is just keep our relationship and a little nod to our buddies. We will sometimes take their beer that is over fermented or it's not right for the batch, and we'll still it back down for them so that we can take out the base alcohol. So in this one, this was a very heavy malty beer. So what you'll smell in there is that wort smell, and what their plan is at Brazen Hall is to eventually turn this into their own whiskey. So kind of an interesting, yeah, and I'm very curious how that'll turn out because I've played the whiskey game quite a bit. You're waiting 4 years to get paid. So if it doesn't turn out right in that first year and a half.
So this is from Brazen Hall.
This is from Brazen Hall. Yeah. So this is 2,000 liters of beer in here right now.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Holy.
So get your mugs down, eh?
Nice.
I don't think you want to drink this stuff though. It's a little funky. So as I was explaining with the grain though earlier, right? We get that 400 kilograms of grain. Same thing. I use the forklift to hang the bags up in the air, and then I pull the trap door from underneath. I will then fill this up with the 400 kilograms of grain to the ratio of about 1,250 liters of water. Okay, that's just my specific measurements. And you'll see on that little, where this nice lady in red is standing, you'll see the markings on there where I've pre-marked for all my fill lines. So once I get that all in there, I will then close only one latch. The reason for that is because I'm not trying to trap steam. We're not trying to create a pressure cooker situation. Because what that'll cause is vapors, and then that's only used for the process of actually vaporizing alcohol to strip it out of the mash, right? At this point, we're just trying to create that hot oatmeal type mash. So what I'm looking to do is let all the steam out, but just trap the heat inside. So that I just can, slowly cook it over a few hours, right? What I will then do is I will add, right before I close the hatch though, 2 enzymes, laminase and amylase. They're essentially just there so that they promote a lot of growth with the yeast for breaking down sugars, but also reduce the growth of bacteria. That's the big thing, right? When we're playing with heat and fermenting for X amount of time, you have to be very careful about your temperatures because heat, moisture, mold, right?
Yeah.
And we don't want that, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So once I get that all set up, I'll crank the heat up, I'll put in a few enzymes, I'll go up to about 90 degrees then. There's a few holding stages in between just to let the enzymes become active at about 58 degrees. But essentially I'm trying to get to 90 degrees just so I can hold the temperature, let everything cook down. And the reason for that is the grain will break down at that temperature and it'll become very malleable, and that way the yeast can cover the most surface area and strip out the most sugar, most alcohol. And alcohol is what we want around here.
Yeah.
So once I get that, Once I get that done, I will then heat up, like I said, and then start my cooling stage. And at the cooling stage, I will add in one last enzyme. That enzyme is called diazyme, and it really reduces mold. The reason I don't put that in earlier though is it can't handle going up to 90 degrees like the other two enzymes. So it'll actually start to cannibalize itself and break down. So I just put that in the cooling stage. And that's right before the yeast goes in.
So what temperature would that be at?
68 degrees. Yeah. So basically, if you want real fast, the exact process goes in. I put in the two enzymes, the first one I talked about. I crank up the heat to 58 degrees because they become active at 58 degrees. And I wait 15 minutes so there's enough time for them to mix throughout the pot and also become active, okay? At that point, I go up to 90 degrees. 90 degrees, I then hold just so I can break down all the mash inside so it's more malleable. I will then cool down to 68 degrees. 68 degrees, the final enzyme goes in. And like I said, that's diazyme. Then at that point, while I throw in that diazyme, I will also throw in yeast X, which is a nutrient to help the yeast become more aggressive, right? Yeah. So we have very modern yeast, which is already aggressive in its own right. But this just helps with getting a little bit of food to break down more alcohol. So at that point, I then cool all the way down to 30 degrees. 30 degrees is the number I'm looking for because it's warm enough that I can get a lot of yeast production and get the alcohol getting rampant within about 7 days. But it's also low enough that the bacteria is not going to be too overwhelming. Because as you start to hold longer, you lose that temperature. About 12 days, 14 days, you're going to start to get a lot of bacteria growth around the air pocket in the fermenter. And like I said, we do not want that. So at that point, 30 degrees, I pitch in a bag of yeast, and the yeast is just specific to what kind of recipe I'm making. So if I'm making rye, I use a USW6. If I'm making vodka, I'll make a GR-based yeast. I know these numbers mean nothing, and I won't get into too much because those are my special recipes. So you don't get to know that.
So,
question? Sorry, go ahead.
How long did it take you to become a distiller?
So I've made wine my whole life. My grandpa and I made wine. I also came from a lineage of Scottish distillers. My whole family's Scottish, so that's kind of how it goes. I've been here with Jason. We've been partners for a couple of years in another business, and I started my construction company about 6 years ago. So I originally, to get my quick life story, worked for Costco right out of university in the pharmacy at St. James for 7 years. Took most of my capital, saved it up, started a construction company. At the same time, got a degree at Red River along with my business degree to then get into project management for heavy civil construction. Started that company, did quite well with it, sold off some rights, and then bought into the distillery because Jason and I were business partners already at the time, and he owns the majority share of the distillery. So there's a quick life story for you.
But what is the magic juice that makes a good distiller?
Magic juice makes it start. Okay, well, you got to drink the juice, one, because you got to know what you're making. So that's part of it. So the magic juice is almost the conundrum there. The second part, what I'd say, passion for the product, really. You know, I have a big background in creating things, obviously through construction, and you know, also cleanliness, very, very clean. I'm very anal about cleanliness, and it's very hard to keep everything clean around here. So I think it's probably that, you know, drive for being efficient, keeping everything clean, because you need that in distilling. Otherwise, you're just gonna, you know, if you're in the wine industry, you're gonna make vinegar, right? Yeah. If you're in the distilling, you're gonna make mold. So you have to be very anal about cleanliness, but you also have to drive a passion for the product, which thankfully I have both. And I like to drink my own product too, because I like to say I make some pretty good stuff. So that's the big thing there. So once that mash is done, right? But you had a question actually.
Yeah. So just to clarify what we're looking at here. So this is coming out distilled. So this is distilling out at.
You're skipping a little ahead here, but it will come up through here. You'll rise up. So at this point, as you can tell, I'm doing the next part that we'll talk about in a few minutes. But that's okay. It's called the strip run now. So once I've made that mash, it then goes to fermentation, right? But then when I do the first part of distillation, and there's 3 processes, the first is called the strip run. So that's what I'm doing today, is they gave me some, you know, some beer, some alcohol. I want to strip the alcohol out of that, okay? So all that alcohol sitting within that beer at a low ABV, 7% of 2,000 liters, I want to take out all the highest alcohol that I can. So I will then close all these, trap the steam, vaporize the alcohol. Alcohol will then rise up through that condensing tube, go across, hit that condenser over there, which is hit with ice cold water. You'll get a heat exchange, and then the vapor will switch back to liquid. Liquid will come up the spout. Yeah, so that's the base of the
How
process.
much of the alcohol are you going to get out of it? 80%, 90%?
And alcohol ABV or like alcohol?
The alcohol that's already in that beer.
Okay, so I'll just tell you like 2 factors. So yield-wise, there's 2,000 liters in here, right? I'll get roughly 400 liters of processed alcohol out of that, and you'll range from about starting at around 65% when it's processed down, 60-ish. And then as you can tell on the barometer there, if you look, it's very low. It's probably at, it's like water right now, right? So that's the end of the run. So I'm just taking out everything. And then I will, because this is already beer, usually I just give it to farmers. I'll probably just have to drain this one unless I got some farmers that want to have some drunk pigs.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, happy pork, right? So, then we give everything to farmers.
Pretty flavored.
As long as you're in like a low ABV, pigs can handle about up to 20% alcohol pretty easily. And that's legal for them, so no issue. It's just different with cows because the regulations on cows are much more strict as opposed to pigs will literally eat anything, right? So that's the big reasoning. We try and donate everything to farmers because it's just kind of a waste to just
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And also then you have issues with, having to get inspections and that kind of thing. So we just take the mash and try and repurpose it any way we can. So as I explained, once we get that mash done with the yeast in, we'll then set up a pump here.
Good. Your camera.
I will then have this pump set up. It'll hook up to the mash tun, okay? It'll go with these Millennium League green line hoses over here. And you'll see if you all come down here, every distillery, and I mean every brewery, every distillery, they all got pretty much the same hoses. So we buy these in bulk, and then these are used to run our pump systems, okay? So we will then take the mash, set up the hoses to the pump there, and then we will pump direct from mash to pump, and then pick one of the 4 fermenters. So the big thing with the fermenter selection is I run on a 6-day schedule. So in that 6 days or 5-day week, I will be pulling out 2 strips. So that means 2 fermenters are done, and then that same week I'll be putting 2 back in. So sometimes you'll have 4 full, but you'll always be rotating 2 at a time. So the reason for that is because it takes 2 fermenters full for me to get a full spirit run done and get a finished product. That's the reasoning for that schedule.
What is the life expectancy of the equipment?
Life expectancy equipment, once again, as you can tell by the equipment, is pretty well polished, pretty clean. I'm pretty good about it, and I think I get a couple years extra than you should, but probably around, if you're using stainless, because I work in copper and stainless in certain spots, right? When you're having alcohol direct, you want some copper, especially if you're using whiskey, because it strips out a little, as you know, it takes on some flavor from that. I would say 15 years you can probably get on a lot of these. You might get some rusting with the copper, not directly on the copper, but the valve fittings. Yeah, so the issue with that then is you just have to really strip down once a year and clean and polish everything. That way you're going to get much more longevity. And you could run these all the way up to 30, 40 years if you're really taking care of it.
Do you do your own preventive maintenance?
I do everything, yeah. Everything in here has been touched by my hands, and many a time. So the big thing is preventative maintenance. That's totally it. With our motors, right, you're going to have a lot of pressure in there, and you also have a lot of metal on metal with heat. So constantly lubricating, constantly going in about once a month and making sure that these are like spotless like the outside is. Because when you do different types of mash, like rum, so much sugar, and it just sits on there, and then when sugar's next to air for a long time, once again, mold, right? So, sorry, you were gonna say?
So what was the first alcohol that you
Vodka. Yeah, vodka is what every distillery will start with, unless you've got about $5 million to just start dumping into whiskey. Because whiskey, we should all basically start thinking of whiskey as real estate. Because it is an appreciating product. It's an asset. It's 4 years for me to get paid, right? And the big thing with that is I'm trying to do as much volume as I can. Because with the whiskey, it takes a lot more effort to fill a barrel. So you're holding that for 4 years to get paid, right? So most distillers will always get into spirits to get their capital and their cash flow going, and then they will start getting to whiskeys. As you can tell, I've done well enough that I'm getting to whiskeys. So clearly, my prosperity is coming. Right? So, sorry?
So it'd be the vodka and gin and the
Vodka,
clear
gin,
spirits.
infusions. Yeah. So a lot of people don't understand too, when you make a vodka is your basically the most neutral alcohol that you can get. We use grain alcohol because it's the cleanest. It is the most expensive, but it's cleaner than potato vodka, right? And you get a much better clarity and flavor. And then we will use that vodka to then add botanicals, juniper, coriander, orange peel, rose hips, and then you make a tea to make gin. A lot of people don't understand that gin is actually just vodka tea. You're taking vodka, you're filling it in the mash tun, you're adding your recipe with all your botanicals, and then you're stilling it down again and making a hot tea. And then you cool that through the same process, through the condenser, comes out gin. So that's what usually most people will start with because it's easy to do infusions from that starting point until you started getting into the cash flow to buy whiskey barrels.
So how long was it from your first run to your first sale?
First run, first sale instantly. So once the run was done.
I'm assuming you didn't buy the first bottle.
No. No. I don't. That's one thing that's nice. I've saved a lot of money over the years on liquor, I'll tell you that. So the big thing is, yeah, that's why you're here, right? Yeah. So the big thing with that, right, is for us, we had pre-sold some of the alcohol ahead of time because we knew what our yield was going to look like. And then we also just tried to ship out direct to the MBLL as soon as we started so that we had a purchasing order set up, right? Because if you're trying to just sell direct from storefront, you're going to have a lot of issues in your distribution. So that MBLL connection really allows us to ship more and better. Yeah, that's the big thing. Yes. So once we get this in here, like I talked about, it'll sit in here for a base vodka mash. It'll be in here for about 6 to 12 days. Any longer, I'm just starting to play with too much oxidization and you're going to start getting bacteria growth. So I like to be under that 12-day mark. You will also get cannibalization of the alcohol. So you will start to lose ABV as it sits in there. So you want to hit that special, that medium range, about 9 days, 8 days, where the alcohol's become very rampant, the yeast has started to slow down, the temperature's also gone down a bit, and you're pretty much good to go at that point, and you will have almost zero bacteria growth and net zero ABV loss. You know, some mashes will obviously be different than others, but we're playing around the 94 to 96 range. 94 being a little low for me, 96 being the unicorn, and I want to see friggin' unicorns around here because that means more yield and more money. So that's the big thing. Once this is ready now, and like I said, for that vodka mash, it's about 8 days, 9 days. If it was rum, it can be up to about 25 days. The reason for that is rum is molasses based. The sugars are so heavy in the molasses, the yeast just takes more time to work on that surface area and break down those sugars. You also have to set these up with a heating jacket. So I run these little white lines you'll see. I'll run hot water through those to simulate a warmer climate. So these equatorial countries, you know, Dominican, Cuba, they're running 33 degree all day long, right? And the rum can ferment very easily. But by putting hot water in here, I can simulate 33, 34 degree weather and have the rum right sitting in where it wants to be. So that's the big reason for having systems that aren't just a standing fermenter. You need to have cooling jackets and some ability to agitate so that you can be in that heat range so the yeast can be more active. Because if it was too low, I lose Brix, I lose ABV, and I'll lose a lot of rum. Then no good for me. So that you're gonna hear that a few times today. So once that's done, I then hook up the pump again. I pump back to the mash tun, okay? And then this is where the distillation process starts. So there's 3 parts of distillation: strip run, secondary strip run, and then spirit run, okay? So with the strip run, imagine we had a mash in there. We go into here, and then now we're actually doing a strip run today, but with that beer that I talked about. So it's the exact same process. I will then close every latch as I talked about, right? Because I want to trap all that steam in there. I then vaporize the alcohol by getting up to almost boiling point, okay? Alcohol vaporizes up, rises through the condensing tank there, goes over across that pipe that you see at the top. The alcohol vapor, and you can follow me down here. Alcohol vapor will come into the condenser here. The condenser will be hit with ice cold water, and then you'll get a heat exchange. Alcohol vapor will turn back to liquid. Liquid will then come out as here as low wine, okay? And the reason we call it low wine is just a distiller's term for the first strip of low quality alcohol. So this has all the methanol, all the false alcohols, ethanol as well, but it will basically be very sour flavor to whatever the mash was. You'll get a lot of that sour characteristic to it, and it won't have a very good drinkable flavor. Now, I've obviously drank it a million times because I need to know what it tastes like. But the big thing is your ABV will drop very quickly, and on that low wine, you'll get about 1.5 barrels, about 65, 70% alcohol. So that's just getting everything out, right? Because we just want to strip, hence the name, any possible alcohol that's been fermented, so then I can then dispose of the mash in whatever way I deem fit, and like I mentioned, we donate to farmers. So that's the big thing with us. Because like I said, happy pigs, right? So once that's done, we have that low wine, okay, for the strip run. We then go into the secondary distillation process, which is called, you guessed it, the secondary strip run. So I'll bring you guys right over here. And so this is where we start to introduce some copper, as I talked about before, right? And as the gentleman in the back had mentioned, because the alcohol will have that reaction with the copper, it's always good to, when you get down to a still, good to have some copper formation. We use stainless, obviously, durability, but then the copper will add a little bit of flavoring based on the alcohol reaction. So the thing with us now is once we get that low wine, okay, I will pump those barrels into here. I will turn up the heat in the same process, turn the agitator on so it's mixing. But then what I do is over there, when we've done that strip run, it only goes through one plate. So that little window that you saw in the front of that condenser, you'll see the vapor going through there, but it's just going through one section. So it's only getting processed in one single plate, and that plate essentially holds the alcohol until, oh, it's vaporized and lets it through, okay? In this scenario, when we're doing the secondary strip, I run through a 4-plate system because that just allows the alcohol more time in each plate, and it'll actually rise the ABV as you go up through the system through each plate. So when the alcohol comes out, it'll start here and it'll start bubbling, ready to go, right? And then suddenly it'll go, okay, you know what? You've got past the point of me being able to contain you in here. I'm gonna let you move on up and graduate to the next plate, right? So as the alcohol, quote unquote, graduates, it becomes stronger through each plate until it eventually rises through the top. Exact same process happens. It comes across the hoses and then hits a large condenser on the side, turns back to liquid, right? So that process is called the secondary strip run. So the secondary strip run creates high wine, and as I had explained before, low wine, right?
Yeah.
Hence the name, pretty easy to figure out. Low wine, lower quality alcohol, high wine, a little bit higher quality alcohol. Less of that sour flavor and a little bit more of a sweetness to it, higher ABV as well. You're getting to about 88, 89%. So it's pretty mint stuff, but not what we want from bottling, because what do we want around here? Premium products, right? So at that point, I got a few anecdotes, eh?
Nice.
So I will then at that point swap the levers. I'll run from the 4-plate. I'll skip this completely, okay? So all that alcohol, that high wine is pumped right back into there, but also with a little bit of the tails of our spirit run. And the reason for that is a lot of cheap distilleries will actually add their tails, which is the kind of final part of their spirit run, which is their final product. It's very sweet. It's got a little bit of mist clarity to it. I'll show you it right here. So this is what the tails looks like. So you have heads, hearts, and tails, okay? So the heads is what we don't want. That's the last of the alcohol that has methanol in it. And what does methanol do? Make you blind, right? Can't see? No good. Turns out, blind customers, not return customers. Yeah, don't worry, I didn't figure it out the hard way.
Yeah.
Can't drink by wheel?
That's right. Well, if we can make it to the liquor store, then they can. So the way that works here is we have...
He's talking from experience.
Oh yeah, you talk from experience, eh? With the cane, right? Yeah. So as you can tell here, right, the tail has a much different color to it. Still very good alcohol here, but it's got a little bit different sweetness characteristic to it, and we just don't want that for final bottling. We want the hearts because that is pure alcohol. This is your old moonshine and stuff, right? That's the good stuff.
Yeah.
So once that secondary run starts, like I said, it has the tails of the previous strip, previous spirit, because it juices up the ABV content, also adds a little bit of natural sweetness, but it gets stilled again. So we're just refining that one more time because it's not quite pure when it goes in. So at that final process, once that secondary strip has been pumped back in, now we're doing our last, final and third distill called the spirit run, okay? Spirit run, same thing, same process, everything gets heated up, vaporizes, but I skip this completely, okay? Because what did I mention earlier? Each plate means higher alcohol, right? Alcohol wants to go up, okay, I'm too strong for this plate, on to the next one, right? So we go into the 20-plate condenser for this one. As you can imagine, more plates, longer duration process, higher ABV per plate, right? And so this is actually the largest plate condenser system in Manitoba.
Wow.
I haven't seen Crown Royals recently, so they probably got me beat, but we're just gonna go with that distinction for now.
Yeah.
So this is a major plate system. It's a 20-plate system, and this one here will essentially then be taking the alcohol from the strip, right? That secondary strip. So now we're in our spirit run. When I pumped on the last one, it was 90, 91. I was saying that's on a good day, maybe 88, 89. Once I get out the final top of that 20-plate condenser, unicorn day, 96, sometimes rare, but I wish it was more often, 97%. And if anyone here has seen the show Breaking Bad, they always talk like, I can make 93, but he's making 96, right? And so we want to be that guy. We want to be making the most premium alcohol we can every single time. So I'll bring you guys right over here. So the interesting thing about this here is the smell test, okay? So the first one now, when I get that alcohol out and I do that spirit run, okay? What I have to do is I have to make 3 cuts of the alcohol. I have to cut out the first cut, which is the head, which has that final bit of methanol. And the reason that comes out in the head is because the methanol will actually vaporize faster than the ethanol will. So you're getting rid of the false alcohol that you don't want for consumption first. So the heads get cut always from the beginning. I'll let you have a smell of that.
Oh,
And you can just pass it on down.
it's paint dinner.
Paint dinner, right?
Yeah.
Smells like nail polish remover.
Yeah.
If anyone's got any chipped nails that they need to get rid of,
Yeah.
dip your finger in there. So that one, that
Might disappear with the
don't
guy
do
with the
that,
hat
if you
back
need to,
there.
that's fine, yeah. Yeah, do not drink that. I mean, I've drank it, but don't drink it. Yeah, you take a little sip there. Yeah, I knew it'd be
Yeah,
you.
he's French.
Oh, of course he is, eh? Yeah. Yeah. Hey, tabernacle, eh? There you go. Okay, so that is like paint thinner, like I said, right? And now that it gets taken out, and I use that, and I put it in this steel drum over here. That gets made into hand sanitizer or cleaning products. So I still repurpose it, and during COVID, I repurposed the shit out of that stuff. So it did very well. Now the big thing is once we do our cut there of the heads, I'm then into the hearts, okay? Hearts is my body, that's what I want, that's all the premium alcohol that I can then distill, add reverse osmosis water to, and turn into vodka, okay? So that is the alcohol that we want. I'll let you smell that in a sec, but once that is done, we will get 2 full barrels like this of that alcohol, okay? So I will then do my last strip, which is called the tail. That's that last cut that I was talking about. And the tail goes into this bucket here, and it's about 30 liters. And that's when I was saying before, I add that back into the next spirit run. So it's almost like the 1,000-year-old soup mentality. You're just putting in the broth of the old product every time, right?
Yeah.
So the consistent sweetness, volume stays the same, don't have to adapt my recipes, right?
Nice.
So the way that that works here is I cut out the body there, I fill the 30 liters of tail, and this is what the tail smells like. Completely different,
not bad.
right?
Yeah.
Totally different smell than the heads. It's got a very sweet characteristic.
very sweet, yeah,
And
yeah.
you can drink that. It's not gonna. There's no methanol. It won't hurt you. It's just not a very quality product, right? So the thing with that there is once I get that done, right? That is now sitting like that, ready for the next spirit run. And then the one that we want here is the hearts. Okay, hearts is that body that I talked about. That's the alcohol. That's a final finished product. So I'll let you smell that.
Oh,
That is moonshine.
That
right
is
there.
shine.
That is shine. So
Yeah.
that is 95%. Whoever made that, I wasn't there that day clearly, because
back-
that's 95.
It's back to
I'm
being
making 96 and above.
being back in the country there, drinking
that's
the
like,
shine
you
in
ever seen the
Stonewall. Yeah.
Moonshiner show and they're
Oh
shaking
yeah,
that?
we had some shiners in
Absolutely.
Stonewall. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
So the thing with that one there is that will evaporate a little bit over time. So obviously I've opened up 1,000 times doing all these tours, right? So you will lose a little bit over time. So it's probably saying 93.5, 94 right now. But you have indefinite shelf life with alcohol, right?
Yeah.
There's never going to be any change on it as long as it's stored properly. And the big thing with that is once we get into that product, that 96%, I then test that with an ABV monitor to get my exact decimal point, because then I have to do a conversion to know how much water I have to mix down with the alcohol to dilute, okay? And the big thing, and you guys can probably see over there, those white tanks, those Ace Rotomold carbon filter tanks, you see those?
Yeah.
So I put into those and then I let the carbon filter run. But the thing that we have that's very beneficial is we invested in our own reverse osmosis system. So most distilleries will get water shipped in, okay? Because we have so much production, can't do that, right? The lead times, the delivery, paying for totes, it would be ridiculous to even think about. So we paid the expensive amount of money to get a reverse osmosis system, which sits in there. And it's just constantly pumping out water from the main line from City of Winnipeg. And then we always have clean water that has taken out the mineral content that will make cloudiness and give sediment, but has the minerals that your body needs to digest. Because distilled water, you can't drink, right? So that's the big reason you have to have reverse osmosis to get the most clarity.
Yeah.
And then now the big thing that I always show people, the 3 ways that you can tell when you're going to do those cuts to get the certain alcohols is 1 with the barometer, it shows the ABV. 2, I've tasted and drank everything around here and smelt it a million times, so that's the other way. And then the third common way would be to actually test the bubbles. Okay, you've probably seen this in the old shiner tricks,
Oh, yeah.
right? This is an old moonshine trick. So if I show you this is the tails. Still very high alcohol content, okay? So you see how long those bubbles are hanging around there for? They don't want to go anywhere, okay? Now look at this. Gone.
Yeah.
Instant. Those bubbles oxidized, boom, pushed out. The alcohol is so strong in there that it has nothing to do with the oxygen, okay? So that's a big reason too. So Jason and I will sometimes take a little sample, shake it, but we've done it a million times, so we'll just, and then we know pretty quick, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the base test on everything. That's how you run through, make sure your systems are calibrated. I will always make sure that I'm not having to go up and do the dance of playing with levers. So we have a deflegmator system, which is those tiny copper tubes that you see. So once I get up and I get the steam going, it will then actually regulate the flow of water for me. So that's the big thing, because then I don't have to sit up there and play this thing like a friggin' piano all day long. Because that would be no fun, and I've done it. So yeah, that's the base tour, everyone. That's how we go through all our production. And then the last thing I'll show you is just, I'll let you go first. Head over to the whiskey cask and I'll just explain the last thing there. All right around here. Okay, this is the last part which we spoke about earlier, because you all tried it. So our wheat whiskey is going to be a very premium product for us. We're super excited about this because we did so well on our rye whiskey. At about 3,500 bottles, I've only got about less than 100 bottles left. So I did pretty good on that one. Only problem is though, is like I said, I'm waiting 4 years to get paid on these suckers. So we got one batch went in, which was 8 barrels. And you can see on the side there, it'll be ready next year. A lot of this is going to go to Thomas and Hines Tobacconist because I'm a good buddy with Rob there. As I'm sure some of you know, his tasting room is friggin' incredible.
We were there last night.
And I was there last night because I saw you two there. Yeah. So that's why I was going to mention that.
Oh, you were there last night?
Oh yeah, I racked up about a $750 tab there last night.
Oh my god, that was easy to do.
We're good friends though, I'll tell you that much. It helps.
Is that with or without the discount?
It's a 5-finger discount. Here's the tip for the bartender, and I'll comp you some bottles next week. We got a good little thing going.
Nice.
But the thing with this though is this is going to be the first ever Canadian wheat whiskey. Okay, so we're trying a new recipe. We have some American Oak Char No. 3 barrels that we purchased brand new. Okay, brand new. Yeah. The reason for that, 4 years to get paid. I cannot risk on a sherry cask.
It's already.
Yes, exactly. It's to a spec, and you can see on the side when you guys come by, there's a barrel mill here. You can take a picture of that. It's barrel mill American Oak Char No. 3.
There you go.
Yeah. So we buy them brand new. The reason for that is that you just cannot risk having something tainting your batch, right? If I have 4 years and it turns out sherry was made in there last time, I now got a real sweet whiskey coming up, right? So you got to know what you're doing as far as the longevity of the product. That's the big thing. So that's our only product that we really age over a long period of time, other than certain rums of rum, which will be aged by a year, because the standard on whiskey is 3-year minimum, whereas rum it's a 1-year minimum. That's the big reason, right? I have made grain spirits that taste wonderful like whiskey, and they're young, so I can't call them a whiskey. Still full flavor, but for the sake of, like I said, that real estate investment, appreciating asset, you want a 3-year plus whiskey.
For whiskey, it's got
Gotta be 3. Yeah, gotta be 3. Exactly. It can be a grain spirit that tastes just like any quality whiskey, but and you're not making enough money on it either. You just hold that extra year if you have a 2-year as opposed to a 3-year. Just labeling that as a whiskey will get you a much more chance to sell. And just the liquor store will always purchase whiskeys. That's the big thing.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
That's
Somebody
it.
walks in, they're looking for whiskey. They're not
Exactly.
looking for
Grain spirit. Yeah, exactly. So that's the big thing with us is we use cask to age, and only on 3 specific products, being the rum, the oak rye, and then the wheat whiskey. So that's the big thing with the cask, and we have separate casks for each one, because like I said, we don't want to taint our batch by using a previous recipe in the next one.
Well, you said you did only 8. What's in the other?
No, so we have 24 casks altogether, 8 already next year. Yeah, exactly. The reason I do that, and there's 8 back there, it's so that you have a batch coming ready as you sell out the first one.
And then you can keep
you can keep
every
cycling
year.
and get more. Exactly.
After that first 3-year wait, then it starts paying out.
Then I'd like some money. So that I can do this again, right?
Understood.
Then the only other thing that I'll just quickly touch on is these products obviously are made to distill majority and then aged. The only other thing that we do is infusions, right? So that's when we take a base alcohol and then we use these totes here to infuse. The reason we use these blue totes is because they're medical grade, so you'll have no leaching and no staining. Big thing is microplastics, heavy alcohol content. You'll strip plastics if it's not medical grade. And like a dill pickle vodka or an espresso vodka, if they're using these plastic toasts as opposed to medical grade, they will stain the ever-loving heck out of them. And I got a $300 deposit on every single one of those toasts. And I have about 60 of them in my warehouse across the street. So I got to make some deliveries pretty soon because I think I can use a little cash back in my pocket. So that's the whole production and basically the whole tour for you guys. The only other thing that you can just pan over there all as we walk past is our bottling area there. We have a mix of single fillers and then also multiple fillers when we're doing major bottling runs. We also have single labeler, and then in the back, which you won't be able to see there, you'll probably see it when you walk by, we have a rollout auto labeling conveyor belt. So we'll just put them in and they will label the bottles for us, which is nice on my wrist. So
Is filling done by hand too?
filling is done by hand only on single fills. If I'm it's an automatic single filler. I still have to load it in, right? But the filling is only done if I'm doing 10 cases or a few, right? Just for the day, so that if I need to fill an order or something like that. But if we're doing major bulk like they were doing today, you'll see that what I call the cow over there with the 6 udders. That will just hold 6 bottles, and it'll run through about six bottles every 10 seconds. So as long as you can, fast as you can get them off and get them back on, you're making alcohol pretty quick. So there you go. So it was a pleasure chatting with all of you, and I hope you enjoyed the tour.
Awesome.
That's great. Let's go drink some booze now. Okay, because that's the important part. That's why.
Well, that's the major reason. This was a pleasant warm up.
As you can tell, it's pretty good. I've done a few of these.
Alright.
Yeah, I like to see it's pretty good.
Yeah, you do all right.
I do all right. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll work on it, eh?
Yeah.
I'll work on it. So I do all right. Let's head up this way, and then I'll get the next tour in. Only the finest ginger beer for my guests.
President's choice. Nothing better.
Surprisingly, actually tastes delicious.
Cardiovascular disaster, is that what you call it?
You must have an alcohol weight to get the
Oh, I wondered about that.
This guy. He's got it. All right. Now we got everybody.
The gang's all here.
The gang's all here.
That's it, eh? Bunch
This is our trick or treat number 4 or 5. And of course, thank you very much, Mac and Jason, who's not here, at Capital K for hosting us tonight. The tour was awesome. We learned, I'm sure everybody learned something, and we'll, keep at least 3 or 4 things in there.
Yeah, I think we should all learn again. See if you remember one thing, right?
Yeah. So we have a beautiful tasting of all Scotch whiskies tonight, and then there's going to be a couple options in the back here, and I believe will be available to purchase as well. If there's anything from Capital K that you're interested in after trying some of our samples and the freebies here. So tonight's tasting is kind of themed in the trick or treat kind of scary thing. So everything's either a mythical beast or the Beast of Dufton or Smokehead with skulls and all that good stuff. 4 tricks or treats. The SMWS is a sweet, spicy, sticky sweet, spicy treat. So we're trying to get into the theme of Halloween. Of course, there's only 4 of us dressed up, but that's okay. It's going to be easy. It's going to be easy.
Me too.
To pick some winners on our giveaways.
Exactly.
So we wanted to throw a curveball, a trick or a treat, and not have an actual tasting lineup, like an actual order of things. Even though we kind of did order them left to right from the bottom all the way to the other bottom, if you go clockwise. But we thought it might be fun to kind of just go all over the map. So we've got each one of the whiskeys that are going to be sampled today here. We're going to pick out sample number 1, and that's where we're going to start the night. So we have a couple of speakers. We got Will, myself, and Joe are going to talk about the whiskeys. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. Hopefully everybody's got a safe way home. And of course, if we're going to be taking part in a lot of alcohol. If you have a car out here and you can't drive, and you're going to call an Uber. You're going to figure ways out to get home.
Leave the vehicle. Absolutely. We've got enough spots in the parking lot. If you got to leave it, I'd rather have that.
If you're going to spew,
Spew in
Okay, so
over 10 feet.
Before we actually get down to the actual tasting, we want to kind of let you all know about what's happening next month too. I unfortunately am going to be out of town at the Banff Whiskey Experience at the end of the month, which is a Thursday I leave. The last Wednesday of the month is my last day with my kids before I leave for the whole weekend. So we're going to kind of push back the November tasting into the first week of December. So hopefully that works for everybody. It's going to be December 6th. It's going to be a $55, more a little bit of a premium event where we're going to be sampling high coast single malt whiskies from Scotland. Sweden. So they're all absolutely excellent whiskies, all single malts, lots of different barrel influences, some peated, some unpeated, and it's going to be really, really good. And we're going to see if we might be able to get Lars, who is one of the distillery managers there, to get on a Zoom. It's going to be certainly late into the evening for him if he's going to do it Winnipeg time. But they're quite good with that, and maybe that'll work out and get some kind of computer happening for our live event. That'll be held at Mike's house, and there will be limited seating because some of the bottles are a little bit smaller, the 500 mils, so we can't accommodate a large group. So this kind of group might be our absolute max, and that's it, because we don't have any whiskey left. So without further ado, let's figure out the further. Sorry?
Last call as well. So,
Oh, we're going to do a last call as well?
Sure.
Go ahead. You tell everybody what.
Well, let's do it together. So there will actually be 2 events in December. There'll be the November event, which is going to happen on Wednesday, December 6th. Right?
Yes.
So that'll be the High Coast. We're also looking to do, the traditional end of December event. That'll be December 27th on the Wednesday. Thank you. I was getting the dates mixed up. But we are going to be looking for a virtual event because it'll be after Boxing Day. It'll be before New Year's. It'll be cold. People will enjoy some drams. We are looking at an international thing. I believe.
Yes, we are looking into exploring whiskeys around the world, which is going to be good. We might throw in some rum, maybe tequila in there as well, just so we can fully go around the world.
Try a bunch of different spirits.
It's December, we need a treat.
We'll be looking at some of the Japanese offerings, perhaps something from India. I don't want to commit too much. Maybe an Irish, definitely some Canadian representation as well. But that's, mark those on your calendars, please. We want to give you folks a heads up so you know what's coming and what we're looking for.
Awesome.
Thank you.
There we go. So let's see what whiskey we're drinking first.
Perfect.
Who wants to pick out of this little
You'll make the deal. Don't make it smoke.
You might need a mulligan if it's one
You
of
left
the.
it to chance, man.
Yeah.
This is what happens.
What's going to happen?
All right, we're doing the SMWS one first, which is your top right.
All right.
This one's a treat.
Yeah.
What you should have.
SMWS, the sticky sweet one.
Oh, that's a good way to start.
Nice, well done.
Whiskey, Scotch Malt. Man, I haven't even really started.
Scotch Malt Whisky Society.
The Scotch Malt Whisky Society is an independent bottler. That means that they go out to various distilleries, they try some of their samples, they say, oh, this is good stuff. Can we buy a barrel off of you? And then they bottle it, and they release it like that. So, I mean, right now, I'd like if everybody could just take a nose and just let me know, what you think you smell. There are no wrong answers for this, but Brad, I'm gonna pick you just because I know you.
Thank you. I would say
S'mores, that's a good one. Yeah. Daryl, the man that has hiked across. How about you?
I got some a little bit of vanilla but with a back of mint or pine mint.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. There are no wrong answers for these. Sandra, I would ask you that you've got samples. So what the Scotch Malt Whisky Society does is they never tell you exactly what the dram is. But, you know, after you've had the nose, I will forewarn you that they always bottle it cask strength. Actually, not always, but most of the time they're cask strength. And I don't know if, Chris, I think you're gonna get the bottle next. Do you know where to find what the ABV on this is? Because I know that it's gonna be north of 50%.
61.
61. No, it's north of 60.
60.1.
You know, after you've had a bit of a nose, I just want you to take a nice little ginger sip. Just hold it on your tongue for a little bit, and then let it settle in. And then after you've had that pause, have another sip, and let your tongue fully acclimate and enjoy all of the fullness that's in there. In this case, they've used a grain, and the Scotch is very particular in that you have to have malted barley, and it has to be done in a pot still. And if you do it in any other way, it has to be called a grain. So this is from Strathclyde, a distillery that supplies various blends. So if you've heard of Valentine's, Chivas Regal, Royal Salute, that's where a good chunk of their product goes into. In this case, the SMWS goes and buys an awful lot of bottles, awful lot of barrels, and then does these independent bottlings that allow us to enjoy these spirits. So one of the nice things is that even though grains do tend to end up in blends, you'll get a slightly different flavor, a slightly different character to the spirit itself. How are people enjoying it so far?
Really nice.
Can't go wrong with that.
Talk about is how the bottles were done. In this case, they started off with an ex-bourbon barrel, and that's what a good chunk of most Scotches or whiskeys start off with. But on the last, they say it was done with a second fill, high toast, medium char pod. So what they've done is they basically taken the barrel, they've scraped out the insides, they've recharred the inside so it rebuilds the connections with the spirit, and then they've given it a bit more heat to dry it out to activate some more of the oils that you would find within the wood itself.
Cool.
Yep. And yes, this was at 60.1% ABV.
Very impressive.
60.1.
It's a good way to start the night.
Yeah, because my
Traditionally supposed to start at the lower, work our way up to the.
We're professional drinkers here.
We can all have started at the top and
Generally
working
what
way
you
down.
find is with any Scotch, it's in the barrel, it breathes, you lose some of the spirit, so you also lose some of the water, but the ABV that it starts with tends to mellow out over time. This one happened to be in the barrel for 16 years. Well, both barrels. So the initial bourbon barrel and then the high toast medium char afterwards. So,
medium char, so that's the number 2, I guess. Right?
You would actually be the expert
Yeah,
on that.
yeah, number 2, I would think, yeah.
Yeah.
So I use number 3, heavier char a little bit.
Yeah.
You'll notice like on the one here, the one right here. That one, quite a heavy sweetness to it, and that's just good. And that'll taper off. Usually you get about like 18 months, you'll start to notice that taper again. So that one's out at 2 years, and it's coming down a little bit. I'm quite happy all that'll come out in 3 years.
Yeah, no, actually that's got a very nice vanilla.
Yes, vanilla.
Both of you answered at the same time. We've got one. So we've got a couple prizes.
Oh my goodness.
One of the
Whiskey prizes.
This is part of the Negroni and ship fee. The first time you join, you don't have to pay the membership fee per se, as long as you buy bottles that are equivalent or more than the membership. I will be quite frank, they are getting a little bit pricier compared to some of the other independent bottlers. They're not available in Winnipeg, so you would have to contact Calgary, or I believe, well,
BC
Calgary
has
is the
one
main
too,
one.
but Calgary, it would be Calgary.
Yeah. Calgary would be the main one. Every month they do tastings. They provide tasting kits where they give out half-ounce samples of the new release for each month. And usually they have about 6 to 7 new releases, and they have a wide range. To give you an idea, like I said earlier, they give number codes for the distilleries that they have collected samples from. I believe that for single malts, they are up to the 150. So in other words, they've collected, barrels from 150 distilleries. They also have, with the Strathclyde, that was number 10 for their grain whiskeys. They also have rums, gins, and bourbons as well.
They have Shelter Point was one of the first Canadians to go into the SMWS. Catalan did 5 bottles from Taiwan. Interesting that it's a grain one. I don't know if you mentioned that it might be, is it still malted barley? However, they use a column still.
Thank you for pointing that out. I didn't forget that. I'm not entirely certain. I'm pretty sure that they did malt the barley, but Strathclyde uses column distillation. So before I was saying, like, you had to have you had to have malted barley, and you also had to have a pot still. So basically, back, you would have shown them, the pot. But if you have a column diffuser, then it can't be called Scotch, but it can be called a grain whiskey.
Can be called a single malt.
Sorry?
Yeah. So as Will was saying, this can't be called a single malt Scotch whiskey, even though it's using the exact same grain as our single malts. The difference is the apparatus in order to distill. Instead of a copper pot still, which is required for the designation of single malt Scotch, it is using a column still, which is what you can see over here, what we've all seen over here. So just a different method. I'm eating my own hair here. So one neat thing with the cask number and the information on the labels, a big important thing is if you're going into something blind, the information on the label is key. So this particular one, of course, it tells you everything. But one thing with the Society cask is that if it's distillery number 10, it'll also have a decimal place, and this is the 41. So that's the 41st bottling of Strathclyde. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you'll see your distillery number first, which you can go Google to find what distillery is what, because otherwise you just know what's a sticky, sweet, spicy treat. You don't know anything else about where it came from. And then, of course, you'll see how many bottlings they've actually done with the society.
Me either.
So how's everybody liking it?
Very good.
Does it pair well with your Jolly Rancher gummies?
I don't know, we did get chocolate.
You guys didn't get candy? Spread the wealth, you guys. Sorry, I have 2 kids and they have 2 treat boxes of things, so.
Chocolate and scotch goes to
Anything goes
Mythical
What do you say we were doing next?
He's just drawing for it. Are we doing it?
Macronor.
We are? Oh, nice. Machrie Moor.
Machrie Moor. We're hitting all the. We're working our way down. Literally,
So don't
we're
feel like
right
you have to
percentages.
guzzle your last sample, but we are going to move on to the next one. Okay? So next on the lineup is the one I've been super excited about. It's the Mythical Beasts by Spirited Distillers. It is a 15-year-old Glenrothes.
That's this.
And it is also a single barrel whiskey. This one, however,
I like the color.
is a first fill sherry cask, and I don't think they tell you what sherry. They don't. but we might be able to tell by tasting it, right? If you're getting raisins or nuttiness or anything that's kind of drier, as in not sweet, you might be looking at an Oloroso cask. Pedro Jimenez is another option if you're noticing a little bit of sweetness, but I think we're probably dealing with an Oloroso cask. This particular beast, as spirit-filled, as they put out a little bit of a, this is their marketing, is these mythical beasts. It's the Niami, which it's a water beast, almost snake-like. I guess it's a mythical Scottish creature that the sparkling blue waters of the mighty Spey wind their way through the idyllic Speyside. La-di-da-di-da. There's a big river monster.
La-di-da-di-da. Put that to music.
Play us a beat.
So there's 588 bottles. You're probably on all this beautiful stuff here. You guys can take a look at the story on the back if you'd like. There's 588 bottles of this particular cask. So at 55% alcohol, that's a little bit lower than what you would assume is cask strength, which could be 58 or in the 60s, like our last one. So they might have proofed it down to kind of accommodate a little bit of a smoother mouthfeel. A full maturation for 15 years in a beautiful sherry cask. It's probably quite a large cask as well, if we're still getting 588 casks. So it would be a sherry butt, is how they would call that cask.
A sherry what?
Butt.
B-U-T-T.
Not sherry's butt.
That's why the term buttload is got something to do with whiskey, Sherry butt.
Plenty of people around here in my local town.
I believe where they're talking butt. Butt. I don't know much, but I know what I like.
There you go.
Interesting.
Yeah. Completely different.
That's cool.
That's something Jason and I
Cool.
years
Don't spill
ago
it.
used to.
If I spill it, it's all internal.
Yeah.
So a little bit about Glenrothes. It's a Speyside distillery, right in the heart of Speyside. I believe 1879 is when it was established on the grounds of this is Mortlach I'm talking about. One of the older distilleries in Speyside, and they feature whiskeys that are typically a sherry profile. They'll use a little bit of ex-bourbon to mature their whiskeys, and either finish or double mature, where they're going to blend a barrel with another barrel or batches of barrels. But primarily they're going to be a sherry cask. Now we have a lot of Glenrothes in Manitoba. Wouldn't say a lot because we never have any of these. However, we have the 12-year-old Glenrothes available, which is going to be more bourbon influenced with the finishing of sherry. There's an 18-year-old. There's the Whiskey Maker's Cut, which is excellent. And then there's the 25-year-old. So we have a lot to try from Glenrothes. Back in the day, similar to our Valblair tasting in June, they used to feature their whiskeys as vintages, which means that all of the barley and all of the distillation happened in that one vintage date, similar to wine. They've kind of gone away from that, I think, due to demand and maybe bad crops and all that kind of stuff that particular year. They can't really do that consistently. So, how's everybody liking it so far?
Very nice.
Love the nose.
Yeah.
Is it a
Nose
sherry
is
Oh,
bomb?
yeah.
Mm-mm.
You can smell the
And are we finding sweetness, or are we finding more of a kind of a drier profile, a grapey, raisiny type of note to it?
Yeah, sweet with some raisins in it, dried fruit.
So that's an old
But
roast.
not dry, terrible curds, like
Yeah.
good curds?
Mhm.
Yes, I try to avoid. They're tough. They're
I think Garth is
You
gonna
probably have to let them sit for a
Oh,
while.
yeah, for a long time. Sherry cask, you have to let them sit at 12 plus always. Good 3-year-old sherry cask, nice, just so
CPR strawberries.
I think it was you who discovered this. Yeah, was it you who discovered this one while we were researching?
If they have like a regular.
That, by the way, is the same company that you can buy casks from.
Too many grams. What was that, Daryl?
That's the same company, Spirit Filled.
Spirit Filled.
Is the company that sells casks. I have 2 of them.
An independent bottler, they are not a distiller. They purchase whiskeys from all of the other distilleries. Of course, this is a Glenrothes.
And then they just will draw bottles when you ask.
Daryl was mentioning that he actually owns a couple of their barrels. There is a website where you can go and you can see their inventory list and throw your credit card down, and all of a sudden you own some whiskey in Scotland. So that's a pretty neat concept that they're bottling and making it available for us. So maybe down the road when we start charging $100 an event, we might buy a single cask after 20 years or something.
There you go.
Well, it was.
Hey, I'll sell you one.
20 years is too late. I may not be around.
It'd be cool to have that's right.
The 2 that I bought were 6 years old.
Something that's like a jam or a compote.
Yeah.
Compared to the StickySweet, which was more like on the malt, the biscuits, bread, caramels, birch sugars, and the higher ABV was definitely noted. This is the James.
Yes, sir.
How much was the ABV on this?
55%.
55.
Pretty high. And so you kind of do notice the difference between the 2 different types of spirits. You know, one was a grain, 16 years, 60%. This is a classic single malt, but it's been done with a sherry finish, 15 years, 55%. Do you have a preference or an enjoyment? Or there's no wrong answers, because what we want to do is we want people to enjoy and sort of figure out what they like.
That's good.
Same club. Just chatting with the gentleman up here. I think I want to buy a bottle of this myself. You know, if you guys are getting those inklings and you need to do the same of anything that we're sampling today, minus some of the, like the SMWS, I don't believe is available anymore. If it's something that's still available, we do have access to these bottles for you as well. It's essentially, we depending on the Alberta websites that we find these products from, we can either do orders of 6 or larger orders, or, you know, for example, Kensington Wine Market is one of our favorite locations. Sales are coming up. Because it's Christmas time, like those Black Friday sales, they all take advantage of that kind of stuff. So there's going to be a lot of cool stuff that you could potentially pick up for yourself through the club, where if it's not on sale, you're going to get a discount at certain places. If it's on sale, it's better than the 30 cents that the MLCC puts things on for sale. So you'll see $45 off bottles and stuff like that. And now because we're a family of whiskey drinkers, we share in shipping. You know, so what we might try to do in the future, as we're just trying to figure out innovating the club in the future, we might come up with an idea of like, hey, we're gonna get 5 of the exact same bottle. Does anybody want that bottle? Make it easy for you guys. You just send us the funds. We'll order it and then they're available for you. Or if you find anything online, just keep in touch with one of us up here, and we'll figure out exactly when we can place an order once we've gathered enough bottles to actually make it worth the shipping and all that kind of stuff. Kensington Wine Market, when I had brought that up earlier, they typically will actually save bottles on their site for you until you're ready to ship it. Within a few months time frame, I would think. But if you want to get something, you can always just leave it there until we've actually accumulated enough so that where shipping makes sense. So, all of Alberta is available to you. Before we start, we did start with higher proof options. It's bling. You've got a bottle of water in front of you. If you're finding that you need to try to open it up, taking a little bit of the edge off, just pour a drop of water in your cap, and then into the glass it goes. Still considered neat, right? Because sometimes somebody says it's neat, but it's only 40%, and somebody's already added the water for you. So if you're drinking something 45 or 50% and up, adding water is totally cool. You'll actually find more flavors in it.
Yeah, Scallywag. So we passed the sleeve around there. Beautiful, beautiful sleeve and bottle. I'll get you guys to take a look at it, have a sip. This is the chocolate edition. So they've actually, this is the 6th one they've done. The first one they did in 2018. They started with 300 bottles. It got really good, really popular. So this is the 6th edition. This is one of 4,200 bottles. They are a small batch bottling technically, but since it's doing really well, it's quite a bit bottling now.
4,200 is getting out of small.
Yeah, that's not small anymore, right?
Yeah.
That's a
I was gonna say, what do you class as a small batch if that?
I mean, I'll make like 3,500 for a rye whiskey, and that's, you know, even I find like I make pretty good production. That's kind of, I'm cheesing a little bit calling that.
Yeah, I would think that'd be closer to
1,000 bottles, 2,000 bottles, small batch.
small batch. Yeah, but anything, to me, I would think anything over 2,500 or whatever.
You're starting to
comes
get
out of small batch.
commercial production.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly, but this one specifically, we're quite lucky. They specified the cask are Pedro Jimenez and Oloroso, so we're gonna get that chocolatey goodness out of there.
Super sweet.
This is blended. We have some coming from Glenrothes, which we already had some already, Macallan and Mortlach, and other ones they don't want to disclose, which is fair.
Makes sense. I'll bet you any money was the
For this one, pardon me? Yeah, so it's blended. So it's blended malt, meaning it's coming from different distilleries, putting it together. Do feel free to add water, and do feel free to try it with chocolate. It's supposed to be enjoyed with chocolate, and see how it goes. Out here, you'll find the very dapper, very good looking fox terrier. They've had Christmas edition, Easter edition. They really have fun with this one. That's why I kind of liked it. They just go wild with this specific like bottling that they have, which is really fun. Douglas Laing has many different bottlings that they do. But for this one, anyone tried 2 different chocolates yet and then had a sip?
It works well with Arrow.
It works well with Arrow. You like the Arrow. But it changes with the chocolate. It's amazing.
You got it. You're right.
A blended malt Scotch whiskey is coming from all malt distilleries, so all single malt distilleries. Johnny Walker, for example, is a blended Scotch whiskey, unless you're getting into the green or anything like that. But there's a difference, there's a small little difference where they don't add the malt if they're using different grains outside of the malted barley. So just a little tidbit of information. I suppose if you're one of those purists where you don't believe in blends, you know, a malt blend might be where you can find enjoyment.
So many good ones. It's a good example of a really nice blend. Yeah, I love it. Love anything from Compass Box.
Of course, Compass Box is.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites. Love Compass Box.
The Douglas Laing stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Just so incredible.
So true. Yeah.
I've heard good things. Very nice.
That is worth a buy in Manitoba. It's only $46.99 as well, and it actually features 2 of the distilleries that are in this blend. It's called the Naked Malt. I don't know if we've tried.
I heard that was supposed to be really good.
Yeah, it is really good.
Yvette said it was good out of from Southdale. She says it's fantastic.
It is very good.
That's cheap.
It's basically a malt blend of Highland Park, Macallan, and Glenrothes, which are the 3 distilleries that are under the Edrington umbrella. So they're all owned by the same group. And it's an exceptional blend. It's 43%, $46. But they're using first fill bourbon, bourbon barrels, and then first fill sherry finish. So you know the natural color, you can see it. It's as dark or maybe darker than this one. So you can just see that the flavor's in that bottle. So it's well worth the $46.
It's good to know.
Called Epicurean, and that's Witchie, Oshkosh, and then I believe they've got a third one mixed in with there. They have one that it was called the Rock Oyster, and then I think they changed it.
They did.
I can't
They
recall
did.
the new name. It's Rock.
Rock something, yeah. Rock. Gosh, right tip of my tongue. I know what you're talking about, though.
Yeah, it represents the islands.
That's right.
They have.
I think it's called Rock Island, isn't it? Rock.
Is it Rock Island?
Might be. It's Rock something.
It's Rock something.
Yeah, yeah.
But again, they've taken like the various regions and they put them into blends, and I have to say they've got some really neat products, and they're really quite delightful.
Yeah.
If you've ever tried the Wee Beastie,
Yeah.
Timorous Beastie. The Timorous Beastie,
Oh, okay.
which is from the Robert Burns poem. It's sort of representing the Highland malts, and they've got the Big Pete.
The Big Pete's really nice. Yeah.
Yeah, and it is iron.
It comes out every year, different version of the Big Pete. Yeah, it's really nice.
It's sort of like the Scallywag, which represents like all of the sherry space side.
Yeah.
The Big Pete represents the heavy hitters from Ireland.
Yeah.
The Christmas edition is always
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Sells out pretty fast. Yeah, Douglas Laing is doing some really, really good stuff. Yeah.
They've made some really delightful products.
Sure have. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Tonight, but you're always accountable.
I'm only drifted myself.
You should go. Okay, so who wants to take part in this picture here? Somebody's not wearing a costume.
Is this a drinking contest?
Loch Lomond 18 and Compass Box No Name. So this is kind of a theme.
That's a nice one.
We've got a ton of SMWS barrels and a boutique to map 11-year-old.
Ooh, that'd be a good
So
one
these
too.
are most likely, I don't know all the information on these because I didn't bring these, but they're probably single barrel cask strength for the majority. These are peat. And then, what is this one there, Joe?
We got Glenrothes 07. Number 2 is Moor-Cask and Lafroy Port and Wine, and then Big Pete Smokehouse.
Ooh. It's a nice one too.
And on all these giveaways, we've added a nice custom Negroni, courtesy of Joel. So you get first choice.
You can't taste every one of them, Dan, though.
Distillery in Dufftown.
In where?
Dufftown.
Okay.
That is in Speyside as well. They've been going on and off, you know, stuff happens. They've closed, they've opened, they've closed, they've opened. Just like most of the distilleries. Taxman closed it, but not going. So it happens. Since 1923, Johnny Walker, now Diageo, has owned them. So this is a big part of Johnny Walker. They are the beast of Dufftown because they were biggest and first in Dufftown. The Wee Witchie specifically is actually referring to their still, the smallest still where they do small batch stuff. This specific drink we're having today is aged for 12 years. Most of the stuff they do is from ex-bourbon, ex-sherry cask, and then they add some, they didn't say how much, from the Wee Witchie into this bottle. We've had the Scallywag, which also contained this. You more than likely, if you're here, have had Johnny Walker in your life. Also a big part of Johnny Walker's Mortlach. And it's a really weird distilling process where they say 2.81. If you actually look at the box there, you'll see like a whole like maze of how they distill and everything. So they have 6 stills, 3 stills, 3 washes. 0.81 comes because of the Wee Witchie. They use like this cold warm tub where somehow they say it's 8.1 because it's not cold distilling it. Yeah. couldn't get into it too much, but if you look into the bottle there, I mean the box there to the side, kind of explains it, but it's really hard to follow.
Mortlach has many different sizes and shapes of stills. So that 0.81, I guess if you're taking their biggest still and calling it one,
Yeah.
you know, Witchie is not going to provide the same ratio of distillation, I suppose, right? So they've got a very intricate and a very cool, unique setup there. Because most brands are looking to get exact measurements on all of their spirits still, so they have that consistency. So these guys have figured out how to get incredible product and consistent product using all of these different inconsistencies, right? And that's why they're the beast. Now you'll notice maybe that you're getting a nice meaty kind of mouthfeel to it. Umami. But just the big body of this whiskey, and of course that might be why it's a very popular part of the main blends, right? Because you're going to give something that's typically proofed down to 40% as a blend, but it still has some body to it, and that's going to come from Mortlach. It'll come from Kleinlich as well, because that's another big component of the Johnny Walker blends, which utilize those worm tubs, and they provide that big, heady spirit.
I like that.
Even
It's
proofed
very
down.
nice. Really, really
This
nice.
is almost, this is along the lines of good Glendronach.
For your distillation
Yeah, getting there,
process,
right? Yeah.
how many
Yeah, you're right.
times, like, I don't know if everybody caught, how many times do you distill?
Okay, so predominantly if I'm looking for like a neutral base looking alcohol, right, a vodka, that's a triple distillation process, because when I take the mash, right, as I mentioned before, we're taking the mash, letting it ferment ideally between 7 to 12 days, okay? 9 days being perfect for the amount of yeast and alcohol production. I will then strip that alcohol, which is distillation 1, okay? Alcohol gets stripped out from the mash, that's low wine, okay? That's the low quality alcohol. That then goes back into the copper still over there. It's still a second time. That is then called high wine. You got 3 up right there.
There's the first one,
Oh,
there's the
okay.
first still,
So we got
there's the second.
the high wine, right? So high wine, there we go. High wine is now going to be going from about 60%, okay, that's the low end. We're now bumping up to about 89%. So you're refining that alcohol, getting rid of the methanol and alcohol. Right? Because as alcohol consumers, we want to drink a mixture of reverse osmosis water, because that has mineral content that our bodies can absorb, right? And then we also want to have fine alcohols, ethanol, no methanol. So then the third process called the spirit run, that's when I refine the alcohol one more time. There we go. And so that's what there you go. So, yeah, there you go. Hold that up. So then we're refining the alcohol just a little bit more to the 20 plate condenser that I showed everyone. And at that point, the alcohol will jump up to each plate, and I'm going at 95. If it's a unicorn, 96. And if I had a real good year, 97. And that happened last week, so I.
So what's better than a unicorn?
Well, I beat the unicorn.
An alien?
Yeah, an alien.
There you go.
So what Joel and James were talking about, like, so Matt, you have an individual run for each one of those,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And for Mortlach, and I know that Springbank, you said Kleinlich, they do something funky because they only have the 2 stills, but they've got a
Cross jointer where it combines the still unless you have vaporized cross. Is that what they do?
Sure.
Okay.
I know that they only have the 2 stills, but they incorporate some of what would have been from the second.
I'll tell you exactly what they do. So they take the still, the alcohol gets vaporized, okay? You have the mash, alcohol comes across, it runs across the condensing unit. So then what you have then is vaporized alcohol at a probably quite high percent, they're already used to 2 stills. That alcohol will then be vaporized, brought up to the condensing unit, hit the ice cold condenser, change back into liquid by a heat exchange, okay? Then you will get liquid that is transferred where I have a spout, so that I collect the liquid and bring it to the next section, they will just have a transferring tube or some sort of chamber, holding chamber, where will bring the alcohol in a cold condenser to another still that will be ripping hot. That alcohol will then move into the next still, get vaporized, and then brought across. So you have two stills working in tandem to vaporize, liquefy, vaporize, liquefy.
Thank you.
You're very
Thank you
welcome.
very much.
What about the .81?
Well, they do some interesting practice with that, right?
On that description, that's only 2. Where do they get the .81?
The
Maybe Witchie a little bit smaller.
Here's a ridiculously complex method, broken down.
And what we love is the fact that we get some really interesting spirits.
And that's still pretty good. It doesn't have the Irish bite as well, but you've got
I like it better without water.
Consistently able to provide a bottle for everyone.
It just browns it.
yeah, that's kind of.
What to do is I need you to pick up the Machrie Moor, and I need you to just pause. And I want you to pretend that you're on the shore of a Scottish island, and you're looking across at the sunset, and you turn around, and you can see some mountains on one side, you can see some mountains on the other side, but you can see a path that goes to flatlands. And as the sun is setting behind you, you're walking down the path. You can see the hedgerows, and you take a little bit of a nose, and you can smell some of the peat, you can smell some of the fires that are burning. And as you're walking through, you come across an opening. And in this opening, perfect on Halloween night, as the sun is set and it's dark, the moon is starting to rise, you see giant stones, ancient standing stones that have been standing for over 3,000 years. An area where people long ago had a human settlement, and you can almost smell the fires that are burning. You can almost smell the peat from the original era. And that is what you will get with the Arab Machrie Moor. I know it's a little bit dramatic. It probably works better if we've got a couple of gravesite. There used to be ceremonies dating back to around 2,000 to 3,000 BCE, whichever your naming convention would be. So, somewhere around 3,000 to 4,000 years, and there was originally settlement and ceremonies before them. The Machrie Moor standing stones, they've got a number of them. Some of them are just rocks, but others are large slabs that are anywhere from, I believe, 3 to 5 meters tall. So, if you think about like a 2-story house, you've got a giant slab that is that high. And the area in the Machrie Moor is picturesque. Erin is often described as Little Scotland, and that area kind of represents both. Scotland.
What's the price point on mine?
The price point, so the Machrie Moor is actually quite affordable. This particular one, I don't think we've got it in Winnipeg.
No.
But if you look in Calgary, it is under $100.
Yeah.
Aaron.
All the errands are good whiskeys for the price.
Really good value on them,
Aaron
yeah.
Distillery is actually a relatively new distillery. There will be some skill testing questions later, so pay attention. The Aaron Distillery was actually constructed back in the 1990s. They began distilling their product. They actually had to shut it down for a little bit because their birds nested, and because of their conservation laws, they had to close it for a season. But it's been producing spirits. Traditionally, they're non-peated. So the Machrie Moor that we're enjoying is one of their more heavily peated renditions. And because of the cask strength, it's got a little bit more oomph than what you would typically get. But what you'll probably pick out is a little bit of the richness of the character. You've got about a 56.2 ABV. They are a very traditional double distillation spirit. And if you've ever been to the Isle of Arran, it is literally one of the most beautiful small renditions of Scotland that you can find anywhere. They have a sections of lowlands where the Machrie Moor stones are. They've got several hills where you can do hiking. If anybody is a curling fan, you'll know that there's a small island that is just to the south of them that they get the stone for the rocks that are traditionally used in curling.
No way.
Yeah. Now, Chris is probably aware, Arran is traditionally, again, their unpeated distillery up in the north.
Yeah.
They have recently opened up an old distillery that had been operational back in, I believe it was the 1800s.
1800s.
Called Lag,
yeah.
L-A-G-G.
Yeah.
They are looking to do peated distillation. So, and some of the products that we've tried so far have been absolutely
amazing. Yeah. Yeah.
Their Machrie
Fantastic.
board, as you can tell, they've added heat to it, but it's just been done in a bourbon cask. So you've got that combination of bourbon sugar as well as the smoke.
I don't have that one yet, but I have quite a few different Arans.
I love the Arran Court cask.
Oh, I have that one. That's
I
a
know
nice
that
one.
in Winnipeg, we used to have several Arran finishes. I know that the Arran Amarone cask was actually one of the really popular ones that came through. I don't know if we stock Arans at the moment.
No.
It was the Amarone that we had.
That was the last one, yeah.
That's long gone.
That's gotta be them.
It is a highlight. So
Aaron's really nice.
I mean, this gives you an idea on what they're capable of in their peated range. If you're looking for something in some of their other cask finishes, their bourbon, which they show their Amarone, it's one of the favorites. The distillery tour itself, again, is picturesque. They'll allow you to check out the product. I did this one before, so I could be talking about my but at the same time, for a Halloween themed treat, we felt that the Machrie Moor dog, the hound, and also the location.
Moore is definitely gracious to offer his wares 10% discount tonight. So if there's anything that you folks are interested in from Capital K, please go see Matt.
And I made my contribution, so ampy up, folks.
Challenge accepted.
The nice thing that from buying from the distilleries, they don't have to worry about the MLCC getting their mitts on more than they need to get their mitts on.
So friggin' mitts off my product.
Exactly. If there's anything that you are considering purchasing, maybe next week, maybe whenever, come to the distillery to buy it. And
Always.
get it at a discount.
Heard and that's the
This is like the most. Hey, what was the question? Little side hustle going on here.
Side hustles are good.
Focusing on Skull. We have Smokehead. Smokehead is an independent bottler. Ian McLeod Distillers. So Ian McLeod Distillers is the brand. Get out of here, cloaked man.
Oh, sorry.
Ooh, so spooky.
I got the loudest voice here, and it's still not the loudest. Sort of remind us. Hey,
There could be only one, that's right, eh?
Off with his head.
No, you're right.
Head with the 8, yeah.
Oh, Highlander, they cut their heads off.
Okay, so everybody over here is listening. So we're going to talk about Ian McLeod's Smokehead. Ian McLeod is an independent bottler. They own lots of cool distilleries. This is not a distillery, this is an independent bottler where they are purchasing, just like they have with the Spirit Bill as well as SMWS. So It's an Islay single malt whiskey. So we know it's probably smoky, going with the name. Islay, synonymous with smoke. But we don't know what distillery it is. So maybe our fine-tuned palates might. If you said Ardbeg and then they're going to tarnish Ardbeg with some tequila, that is a bold move, and I'd be okay with that. Now,
I like the way you put that, yeah.
now, Smokehead in the past has certainly featured Ardbeg, which is one of the top Islay distilleries. Their Rum Rebel is guaranteed it's an Ardbeg. Rum Rebel is one that's available in Manitoba at around $100. Might be able to get it cheaper in Alberta. We also have the regular Smokehead, which is kind of just your ex-bourbon barrel in the $60 to $70 range, which my assumption would be maybe Kalila, another distillery, Diageo owned, so they mass produce. They're very, very much known as something that's found in independent bottlings, is Kalila. So this one will be fun. I wonder if we can taste it and figure it out. If you can't, that's okay. Hopefully you enjoy smoke and tequila as a pairing. So this, you know, the whole tequila cask thing, where Scotch distillers are now using this additional new flavor profile through the casks. You know, you've typically had your new virgin oak, you've had your ex-bourbon oak, and you've had your sherry oak, and all of the fortified wines, and the red wines, and all of those, you know, Sauternes being one of those really cool white wines, so red and white wines. Now, the Scotch Malt Whisky, not Scotch Malt, the Scotch Whisky Association, the guys who govern Scotch whiskey, have allowed tequila casks to now be something that they can age their whiskeys in, which is a very new development. The very first whiskey that I can put my mind to that had featured a tequila cask was the Dewar's Illegal Smooth Blend, which we tried at our Dewar's night. Another whiskey that's been, I should say, tequila and mezcal, which are one and the same with, you know, debating the laws and what cactus they're using.
All agave spirits are mezcals, but the one from tequila is the tequila region. It's mezcal.
Right.
That's
and it has to be that particular blue agave, where mezcal can be all the other colors of agave. So it's kind of a first, even though this is maybe the third or fourth offering of a mezcal or a tequila finished whiskey. So what I'm expecting we're going to notice is of course that peat, but tequila also has that kind of natural smokiness as well as mezcal, more predominantly in mezcal. But I wonder, maybe we're going to get some green cactusy notes on top. Who knows? I haven't tried it yet. Here it is.
It's definitely stringent.
I can, you nose it, and you're almost getting some of that tequila right off the bat.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then maybe you take tequila and smoke, and you get a mezcal. Who knows?
Yeah.
But hopefully you guys enjoy this particular one. Now we're at the end of the tasting. Everybody's done their purchasing. We've had a beautiful tour. We've had candies. We've had good times. Thank you all for being here. We're gonna just keep it rolling. Monthly events are gonna stay.
Incredible, really nice.
So yes, please mark on your calendar, Wednesday, December 6th.
First Wednesday of December, last Wednesday of December.
Yeah.
Well, in this case, yes.
We're in a giving mood in
It would always
December.
be the last Wednesday. But
We're in a giving mood in December.
It sounds like it, but you're not very in November, and that's when my birthday is in November, so I'm kind of disappointed.
We'll have to have a special, you and I will have to have a special tasting.
There you go. In December we'll do it because my birthday is at the end of November. So.
Ooh. Everybody needs to try whatever this smells. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, when if you walk your way around Iowa, what you'll find amongst the really peaty ones, Bunahabin is traditionally not peated, but the ones that they do peat, they peat quite heavily. And I can't remember, and that was now soon to compare. Kalila, I find, usually has a cleaner smoke, but it's got a bit of a nuttiness. This one,
Disappointed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lagavulin tastes good, but there's more brine to it, you know, like a little bit of seaweed, like salt.
Yeah.
The Freud is more medicinal.
Yeah.
Bullmore, I usually get a bit of anise, like,
That's what this tastes like.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
it's usually lower.
Yeah.
This tastes like green.
Yeah. Could be.
Ashes. And like their products are fairly young, so I don't think they're really ready for like selling to an
This tastes like
bottler. And finally, Laddie.
But higher like age or ABV than a little more like a 13 or a 14-year-old Bullmore that put out there. The 12 certainly not the 15 or the 18. But
Now we'll have to have. We do have in our whiskey coffers. We do have some Ardbeg, so we'll definitely feature some Ardbeg upcoming. However,
This is too sweet for her.
you think so?
Yeah.
I think the ABV is lacking. 43%. This one here is.
could be like a non-age statement Bullmore or something like that.
We need some higher ABV.
Should be 46% or higher.
It does, yeah. It's got a bit of peppery notes to it.
Have it at 43, or I don't know, maybe they're trying to capitalize on the fact that it's tequila. They don't have it very many.
It doesn't taste as smoky as it smells.
And that's why I think.
Maybe. Now, if you're finding a whiskey that you're interested in, and this is an ABV kind of push here. You know, we started with our cask strength whiskeys, and then of course we have a couple at 43, 40, 46. 46 should be, if you're walking into a liquor mart and you have no idea what you're there for, I recommend looking for things that are higher proof, because the proof is in the flavor, the alcohol. You're buying alcohol, so buy the alcohol. Don't buy something at 40% and say, okay, well this is 40%. It's going to be easy for me to drink. We have ways to fix that. You know,
Reverse
drops of water. You can proof it down yourself, as opposed to having somebody else do it for you, like the distributor. And this here is in my opinion, it's a very good whiskey. However, it's proof that we need more proof. It's missing something. No? Yeah. Maybe missing a little bit of something.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the punch.
Might be chill filtered and colored too.
You're critical with your whiskeys. That's why I'm doing it, right? So if you guys have something that in the tasting here that you don't like, you're allowed to tell us, right? You're allowed to share your opinion on your likes and dislikes. It helps us down the road, right? We have a lot of people who love peat, so maybe we're gonna figure out a peat night where we might see only half of you because half of you don't like peat. But that's a kind of thing. What we need to focus on is what our likes and dislikes are. So if you guys don't like something, you got to tell us.
Realistically, though,
I like peat.
Even without having a lot of kick to it or punch to it, it's got good flavor.
Very flavorful, absolutely. I think the mouthfeel and the body is what's missing with that lower proof, right? At 46% when you're shopping, 46% is where all the essential oils from your distillate, where Mac has just showed us all of this. Heads, tails, hearts, and all that good stuff. There's body in the higher proof, right? So if you're getting something that's under 46%, you've had a proof down whiskey where you're missing some of the body of the whiskey. And if you're tasting something, say you got a $400 bottle of Glenfiddich 21-year-old, the rum cask, 43%. It's a good whiskey, but it's missing something. It's missing its ABV, right? So, it helps you purchase.
That was an issue with the Calendar 52. There was one bottle that went through distribution line in Winnipeg, and it was $36,000 wholesale.
Say what?
Yeah, so there was one bottle of Calendar 52 that came through circulation in Manitoba. I thought Rob Schellenberg, my buddy, was going to buy it, but a guy actually came down from Kentucky. Well-to-do, as you can imagine.
think.
And he came actually with 2 guys, and they had bought a bunch of other liquor, all in about, you know, $10,000, $15,000 range, 6 bottles, and they brought a case that was locked and shipped and completely, like sealed and
I can
actually
see
sealed
that.
to ship it back on his private plane. They paid $52,000 after fees and taxes for the account. So it's $1,000 a year.
Well, if you got money, that's not very much.
$1,000 a year. Right?
True enough, but
You know,
still,
high alcohol.
It's a lot of money.
Comes direct from cask at
is it
65%.
worth-
Because the job is for
It all
you to
depends.
figure out as a consumer.
It all depends.
Where the
Like,
water
is
and
it
alcohol
gonna
is
taste
for your
that
palate.
much?
It's chemistry, right? Absolutely. And,
Better
and,
than-
and when you
you know?
have
Yeah, but if you're a
control
collector,
over your
not
whiskey,
drinking.
Well, if you just collect
you
it,
can't
you're not
break
drinking
it.
it, but
And if you
I'm
break
thinking
it,
if I'm
you
sitting
still
back
have a
at home,
little
I'm
bit
thinking,
more, but
okay,
you have it, you have.
Jason, are you taking off?
The higher,
I would be.
I actually did that at one of the distilleries in Kentucky. We got to take
So
our
quiet, we're also.
Yeah,
we
we've got to be
thief
taking
there,
a little
little
out of our own
thief.
barrel.
Spirit
The barrel,
thief.
yeah.
You got a little
didn't-
spirit thief. You put as much as you want in
Fine line
the
between
shot
turkey
glass
bacon
there.
and
And
thief.
they have.
We're actually, so we have wheat rye, it's all Manitoba.
It was sent here, they had like turkey, cases or whatever. We sent it by accident. Rich Columbia.
I think I know the answer.
Right, so it was, you know, the make